Hi, I'm John Calarco, Holistic Health and Performance Coach. In this video, I'm going to show you how to strengthen your upper back and improve your posture with the cable row. Unleash your power, achieve your potential. If you have weak upper back muscles or shoulder muscles, specifically in the back of the shoulder, or if your posture is excessively rounded in the chest area, which is called the thoracic spine, or if your shoulders are excessively rounded forward, then the cable row is going to be a great exercise for you because it's going to help you build strength in the upper back and the back of the shoulders and improve your posture in the spine by strengthening muscles on the back side of the torso to get you into more of a neutral spine position. And this is going to help you prevent injury in the shoulders and potentially begin to decrease or even eliminate shoulder pain. Now, this row, the cable row, is the first row that I program for my clients and that I believe you should master first because it doesn't have a lot of other challenges other than just learning the proper scapulothoracic movement or movement of the shoulder blade on the rib cage, and which is essentially what drives the row and allows us to complete it with perfect technique. Different rows like bent over rows create a lot of demand on the abdominals and the spine, as well as knowing how to hip hinge properly, which is an important component of a bent over row. So I like to start clients here with this standing variation or upright posture variation of a row so they can really start to master that pulling movement pattern. This row is going to lay that foundation for your pulling movement pattern, which is one of the 7 fundamental human movement patterns. So this is really where we start to master that actual full movement pattern. Now, in previous videos, I showed you how to build up to this point where we're doing the full row movement pattern and full pulling movement pattern, specifically with 3 exercises. The first one that I showed you was the thoracic rotation and reach, which is really important because it's going to help us open up our mobility in the thoracic spine and the shoulders, which is going to more easily allow us to achieve the right posture here as we do the row. Then I showed you how to do the trunk stability rotation, which was helping us stack some stability on top of the mobility we got out of the T-spine rotation and reach, because we're working out in this neutral shoulder blade position and having to stabilize the shoulder blades in a static way so we can condition some of those posterior shoulder muscles that will be working here as well. Then I showed you the IYTW exercise, which taught us how to move the shoulder blades and do dynamic stabilization of the shoulder blades and properly retract the shoulder blades, which is going to be a really important component here as we do the row. So if you haven't already watched those videos, I'll link them on the video here for you. I'd highly recommend after you watch this video to go back and watch those. If you can master those exercises first, it will just make it a lot easier for you to get the right technique from the start here on the row. You won't be fighting against your posture that's stuck in this position because you'll already have opened up your mobility and it will just be easier for you to perform this exercise. Okay, so the muscles that we're going to be working here in this exercise, specifically targeting, are those muscles inside the shoulder blades. I'm sure you could have guessed that, okay? The mid-trap muscles here and the rhomboids that are inside the shoulder blades and do shoulder blade retraction, okay? Scapular retraction. Then we're also going to be working the lats, the teres major muscle here, right behind the armpit, and that posterior shoulder, posterior deltoid muscle it's called, as we do extension, okay, of the arm, and that arm starts to travel back, okay, towards the back side of the body there. Then the biceps will also be engaged as well as we do elbow flexion and we bend the elbow. Those biceps are going to contract and get a significant challenge here as well. So to set up for that cable row, what we're going to do is get ourselves a band or a cable. Now you can use a resistance band or a cable machine if you have it. In this setting, I'm going to use a band and I'm going to strap it up here on the door frame and show you how we position it there. But if you have a cable machine, that works as well. Either way, the first variation of this exercise that I'm going to show you is up in the standing position. So we want to have the cable machine or the band positioned about sternum height. So I'm going to open the door here. This is actually an FMT band that has a nice thick end piece that you can put through a door frame. And then when you close it, as you'll see, I can secure. All right, I can secure that band in this door, all right about sternum height, and as I pull on it, that thick end piece supports and makes sure that the band obviously stays put. You could also wrap a band like this around something, if you had a pole or something like that. Another option for a band is using a super band, which is just the round looped version of a long band like this that doesn't have an opening and straps, of course. And that one, of course, you would have to have something to wrap it around or tie it around. So this band is very versatile, allows you to work in a doorway, really anywhere, anytime. So it's one of my favorites. I'll link it in the description below if you do want to pick one up. And again, if you have a cable machine, that works great too. Just set the band about sternum height and we'll be ready to go. All right, we're gonna grab onto the handles of the band here. We're gonna walk back and get some tension on the band. So we have tension that allows us to first keep great technique and then gets us that challenge of about a 7 or 8 out of a 10 on a difficulty scale. So that's how we can kind of measure our difficulty and challenge here, where we want to be in terms of how far back with the band. Now we're going to set the feet about shoulder width apart and we're going to come into a little mini squat position here so we can get a good base and make sure the band doesn't pull us forward or back as we do the exercise. Then we're gonna set a nice long neutral spine position, okay? Make sure that that spine isn't overarched or excessively flexed, so lengthen out there, ready for a little punch in the stomach there, in the lower spine, and then the chin is tucked back as well, so we have that nice long neutral spine position. Then we'll set the shoulders. We're gonna take them down into a slightly packed position, all right, down away from the ears, and then we're gonna reach the shoulder blades forward, protracting those shoulder blades, and that gets us into this proper start position here for the exercise. To initiate the movement, we're going to inhale and focus on that shoulder blade retraction, pulling back through the shoulder blades to really initiate the movement, and then we'll finish the movement with that shoulder extension through those bigger muscles like the lats, posterior deltoid, and teres major. All right, so I'm going to initiate here. Inhale, squeeze through those muscles inside those shoulder blades and on that upper back. Exhale, and again, reach those shoulder blades all the way forward. We want to work that shoulder blade protraction and work that full range of motion through the shoulder blade movement here as we go through. All right, so I'll show you a few reps here so you can get a good visual. All right, nothing else is moving here except my shoulder blades, shoulders, and of course my arms as well as they flex and get me into this back position. Okay, so that's how we execute the row. Simple to execute, not necessarily easy, and really the setup is the most important thing here because we don't have so many joints moving here. Just really 2 joints you could say are moving, or maybe 3 if you want to consider, you know, the shoulder blade and the shoulder ball and socket as a different joint, but only 2 or 3 joints moving here at once. So the setup is really the most important part. All right, now the muscles that we're going to be working, of course, as I mentioned, those muscles inside the shoulder blades, the mid traps and the rhomboids, and then the lats, okay, on the back side here, on the side of our body, this really big muscle, those posterior deltoids and the teres major, which is right here on the back side of that armpit kind of, and then of course the biceps will be working as well, so you should feel more those upper back muscles working and then a little bit of the biceps, okay? Now, there's a lot of common mistakes here that we want to avoid that people really miss on a row, as simple as the exercise looks. All right, so the first mistake that we want to avoid, and probably the biggest mistake that I see people make, is the over pull. Okay, so that tends to lead to more of an arm dominant row, and we end up getting this rounding forward of the shoulder, which is exactly what we're trying to correct and improve in this exercise. And obviously we're not if we're letting that happen. So don't over pull and let those shoulder blades round forward, okay, by over pulling, and don't dominate the movement with the arms, okay? If we dominate with the arms, then we're gonna have the same problem, and then we're not gonna get any shoulder blade movement, which is really one of the huge benefits and main things we wanna do here in this exercise, okay? So make sure that you don't over pull. We're not trying to pinch the shoulder blades together, any of that stuff here, okay? I know it's a common cue that's used in a row, but pinching is actually excessive, and often we have to elevate the shoulders to really pinch them together. If you're keeping the shoulders down in a slightly depressed position, that packed position, and you fully retract, you're gonna get stopped where those arms maybe just slightly past the body. Again, if I try to pull back further than this in neutral, I'm gonna have to compensate somewhere. I'm either gonna have to round forward and do this, or I'm gonna have to elevate to really try to pinch, all right? So those are really the biggest things that we want to avoid and the biggest mistakes that people make on the row exercise. Now, just a couple minor mistakes that we want to avoid, of course, is I mentioned it earlier, we don't want to shrug the shoulders, so make sure we're not letting them come up, keep them down away from the ears, and then we don't want to lose our spine position. All right, this one is something people will often do when they're trying to kind of compensate and use some extension of the spine to try to get a feel on that upper back, but we don't want to do that here. We want to maintain neutral position, no leaning back, no excessive extension there of the spine as we go through the exercise, all right? So be sure to avoid and watch out for those mistakes as you perform it. Now, there are quite a few variations that you can perform on this exercise to create different challenges and even bring up the challenge and increase it more. The first variation we can think about here is doing a single arm variation. So same exact thing, same setup, I just have one arm, okay? The difference is when you do the single arm variation, one, it's a little bit harder to really get that full shoulder blade retraction in this exercise. It takes more movement skill and it takes more conscious control because it's easy for the body to kind of rotate and not get a lot of shoulder blade movement as we do this. It's easy to kind of just do that and let the body move and make us feel like we're doing that proper row, but we're missing it. Now, there will be some natural thoracic rotation as you do a single arm row, as that other arm doesn't have any load, so there will be some slight rotation, that's normal, but again, it's a little more demanding to really get the movement perfect on the technique here as we do single arm and try to achieve that perfect back position of the shoulder blade and the shoulder, all right? So, but again, it provides us a different challenge there on that shoulder, and it's a nice way to really work on that individual unilateral strength of one shoulder at a time as we build our strength, which often has a lot of benefits, especially if we're stronger on one side than the other. So that's the first variation that you can use that's really effective and I like to do. But again, that's one I'll kind of progress people to more after they master the double arm variation. Now, a couple of other variations you can do. I'm actually going to lower my band down for this. All right, so I'm going to bring my band about hip height. Okay, pull back, secure it. And now if I set it about hip height, it's going to give me just about the right height in terms of being in alignment with my sternum, okay, as I go into this kneeling version of the row. So we can start tall kneeling. Generally in the kneeling postures, I'll have people start tall kneeling first. So that means knees under hips. We're squeezing the glutes, tucking the pelvis. All right, nice tall posture, neutral spine. And then we're doing the row exercise here, okay? The difference is if we do it in a tall kneeling posture, we're going to be working a little bit more on our hip mobility and core stability, so we're not going to be able to support as much resistance as we would, say, if we were standing and we had all that support, okay? So the tall kneeling variation is one that you can do, and then we can even go half kneeling as well, which creates more of an asymmetrical stance position. We're going to put 90% of that weight back on that back leg, lengthen out tall, and then same exact thing. Still squeezing the glutes here, we're going to get some extra mobility in our hip flexors like I showed you how to do in the half kneeling hip flexor stretch video previously. So this is another great variation if we want to work on a little bit of extra hip mobility and core stability while we go through our rowing pattern. So typically, I'll have clients start by working in the kneeling postures first, going from tall kneeling, mastering that, then going to half kneeling, and then bringing them up more standing to this symmetrical stance posture where we can support more resistance because we have the whole weight of our legs and stability of our legs underneath that row. Now, even one last variation you can do in the standing position is a split stance. If you want to go a little more asymmetrical, okay, with your stance here and get into a little more of a sports specific type of a posture, you know, because we spend a little more time in a split stance or unilateral asymmetrical stance when we do sporting activities. That's another great one as well. That split stance just gives you a different feel. You're gonna have a little more core stability demands as you balance a little bit more than just having the straight up double leg symmetrical stance variation. All right, so that's how we perform the cable row. Really a lot of great things you can do with the row, especially here in the standing posture, which is again why I recommend starting by mastering this row as you start to develop that pulling movement pattern and your skill within it. Now, a couple of things on how to use this exercise in terms of sets and reps and how much we should do. You know, the general rep range here can range anywhere from, 6 reps up to 15 reps. It really all depends on your level of strength and conditioning. If you're more of a beginner, then we want to start in those higher rep ranges of 12 to 15 reps, because not only is that going to allow you to develop the muscular endurance or the strength endurance to achieve that proper posture time and time again, it's also going to give you the amount of reps to develop the skill that you need to develop the proper movement. So, we start a little bit lower resistance and go a little bit higher reps. If you're more advanced and you're just looking to build, a bigger, stronger upper back, then we would go, lower repetition ranges of, 6 to even 10 reps. And we're going to increase that resistance, obviously, with less reps. 2 to 3 sets is probably significant on this. If you're going lower rep ranges, like even 4 to 6 reps, maybe you want to do 4 or 5 sets. But again, depends on your goals and how you want to structure your program and how much volume of work you want to do there. All right, now another key difference that I want to specify between the band and the cable is that there is a difference. Now, when you do a banded row and you walk back, the tension increases as you walk back, right? The band stretches more. And as you do the pull, okay, the tension increases because you're further stretching the band. So it's like you're increasing the resistance as you perform the movement versus when you use a cable machine, the resistance stays the same the exact time. Whatever you set the number at on the cable stack, that's going to be the resistance no matter how far you walk it back. So generally the band is a good place to start. You can accommodate lower levels of resistance with the band. When you're doing the cable machine, that's really a great machine to have if you're going with more resistance and you're trying to do more of those lower rep ranges and heavier weights, because then you don't have to worry about walking back so far or finding a really thick band. So at some point you're kind of going to outgrow using the band and probably need a cable machine, or you're just gonna have to get a really thick band. So either of those can work, all right? In terms of when you should perform this exercise in your workout, this is a staple fundamental human movement pattern based exercise. So typically it's gonna be, earlier or towards the middle of your workout. Great one to do if you are a beginner and you're doing some of those mobility stability drills that I mentioned earlier. If you're doing your IYTW exercises and then going right to your rows right after that to really master that shoulder blade retraction, that's really the perfect time for you as a beginner. But either way, whether you're doing it right after that or in the middle of your, your workout, it can work great as long as you're really consciously practicing that skill of shoulder blade retraction that we work on in this exercise, okay? Now, how many times you want to do it per week depends on your goals. Again, as a beginner, probably 2 or 3 times, throughout the week to really master that skill. If you're more advanced, you may just be doing one horizontal pulling exercise like this a week in your program, depending on how you structure it. And then we'll be doing other, diagonal and vertical pulls, pull-ups and things of that nature that fall within the pulling movement pattern that get us those different challenges and target different muscles. So I hope this was helpful for you. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, drop a comment. Let me know if you have any questions about how to execute this exercise and how to incorporate it into your training program and regimen. And then make sure you subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. If you did miss the previous videos in this series of teaching you how to master the pulling movement pattern, then make sure you go back and watch those again. They're linked here on the video and in the description below. And until the next one, unleash your power, achieve your potential.